3PNR with Adam R. Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. And joining me for this episode is Cindy and Katie from Calpera. Ladies, how you doing?
Doing great.
Good. So we'd spoken before, and that's around the lines when I was trying to discover, more facts around the paranormal and the afterlife. What have you guys come across lately? Anything new?
I think and we've been talking about this, I think the media has hyped up everyone. Everyone seems to demand that they do have a ghost, even if we can't find evidence. So that's a little different than it was, 15, 16 years ago when we started.
Yeah, that's bizarre. You call someone in to investigate something that's, I'm assuming, was troubling, or maybe not, and you're demanding they're demanding to have evidence. It's really strange.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know the word. I know the word I'm looking for. My mind is blank. It's almost like it's quality to have. It's like designer. It's like I have a ghost too. Everyone wants to have their own particular ghost that they can talk with their friends about, and someone else can say, "Oh, I have a ghost too." And it's like an elite thing or something. I don't know. It's very different.
Well, a lot of that's because you see these celebrities on TV now talking about their experiences, and so people always want to relate to celebrities for some reason.
That's true. Yeah. We're not there to tell anyone that they're wrong. We're there to try to help to confirm or deny as best we can. We can walk away and not fully know, clearly if it's full on haunting, and then we can walk away and we can suspect that it is because of some of the evidence that we get. But if the spirits decide to hide from us, or if we find a lot of natural causes, then a lot of the living clients, they get kind of upset, like, well, you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, okay. It's kind of like going to a doctor and demanding that he does absolutely find, some sort of illness that you just know you have. But
it's like a hypochondriac.
Yeah. But I don't want to make an all or nothing claim. There are some very wonderful clients out there that truly are nervous, or suspicious about things going on in their house. They may react to it like they're afraid, or they may react to it like they just worry or wonder. And we come in and do our best to try and help them understand why and who and what, and then what to do about it and stuff.
It makes you wonder what percentage of these entities, these energies, maybe they are doing, like, imagine this, there's an entity in someone's house. It makes it themselves aware to the homeowner, but doesn't want anyone else to know. It's got to be a bit of torture, right? I mean, that's, truth be told, because I've been reading a lot about the darker energies just to kind of wrap my head around it. And they, like demons in particular, they don't want to be acknowledged. They don't want to be, they want to prey on those who are unknowing and they're a weakened state. And when you become aware of them, they do what they can to suppress that awareness. So then said, maybe the same for these other spirits who found someone that they like for whatever reason. And when people like you come around, they hide, or they just, they leave for a little bit.
What we learned from one of the paranormal conferences that we went to, from a really great guest speaker, was that lower level energies will seek out people that are compromised either physically, emotionally, or mentally.
Right.
So that could be a chronic disease where you're in constant pain, or you're compromised physically, or you have anxiety, depression, which is compromised mentally, or you're compromised emotionally, where you have addictions you're fighting, like drugs, drinking, gambling, shopping, whatever your addiction is. But it's like their little hole that they can poke at. Right. Here is where this person has concerns, and this is where I can get to them. And so, yeah, when we have come across, rarely, lower level energies, the household itself usually has some of this compromising going on in it.
Right. Yeah, I was just
Cindy,
talking about this with
the same opinion.
Yeah. I find that lower energies also can be demons that sit and wait and find an opportunity to invade that person's living space. And usually it's somebody who's mentally compromised and can't climb out of this situation they're in. And these negative thoughts start coming in. And then they start, of course, seeing things that are lurking in the shadows and can be very frightening when they call us. And then, of course, we get down there, we don't see what they're seeing or hear what they're hearing. And yeah, it's very frightening. So it's usually just individualized to that person.
To help someone like that, and I was just talking to John DeMore about this, or John DeMurray, I'm sorry. With these lower energies, like I said earlier, they don't want to be acknowledged. Like it's that old saying, I said this a lot, the greatest trick the devil ever played is convincing the world he didn't exist, right? So because for them to prey upon people that are in weakened states, it has to be subtle. They're sneaking in there. And even like what a mental illness is, when you are aware you have it. So we're gonna lump mental illness and the demons into the same category. When you're aware of it, to combat it, you have to be aware of the triggers and be aware of the behaviors in order to correct it. You have to acknowledge it, which I imagine makes it tougher, especially when it's an entity, right? Because a mental illness is something that it's chemical, it's within you. It has to be addressed either chemically or with therapy, where they're, on the other hand, these entities, to recognize their presence and then to deal with it. That's the tough part. How do you recommend people deal with these kind of entities?
The recognition is exactly the core of everything, because every time it's recognizable, it's questionable. And that's the whole, when you're dealing with lower level, that's the place that they want to stay. They want you to not confirm it. They want you to question it and say, and doubt yourself.
Right.
And so, being informed, you can move forward. And so if you're not informed, you can't make changes. So everything that we get emails from people at least once a month, if not more. And they'll say, things, they're having bad dreams. Okay, well, everybody can have a bad dream. And they might have a scratch. Well, people can scratch themselves in their sleep. And there's more arguing going on in the home. Well, I'm not living there. I don't know the dynamics. And so for everything that's happening that goes along what they've seen or heard, or maybe not seen and heard in the media, but they're suspecting these behaviors and these events that are happening to them. Unfortunately, it can all be explained away for a while. So what I look for when I'm talking with someone is how quickly it's escalating. That's kind of the real clue right there. because I will have people that say, well, over the last 6 months, I've had 2 things happen that have been, I know it's, a demon or something. And I'll think, well, this is 6 months apart. And, I would not go there yet. But when it escalates so quickly within, 30 days, you've gone from 0 to 60, things are increasing, things are adding on and stuff, that's when it gets suspicious. CalPara itself does not rush into homes that have suspected demonic activity. It is unsafe for us and for the client to have us be 99% knowledgeable on your standard ghost, and somewhat knowledgeable about demonic behavior, but not so much want to be the person that confronts it and gets rid of it. We recommend demonologists, people with experience on exactly what to do and what not to do, because there's a real fine line about getting the attention of and getting too close to something horrifically negative,
Right.
Yeah, and let me just add that demons, low energies were never human. They were never born. They range into our reality just to wreak havoc. So a lot of our clients don't know the difference between a human spirit versus a non-human spirit. And right away we get an email saying it's a demon, because that's what religions teach us. And that's what they see on TV, that every spirit in their home has to be a demon. So we kind of have to, when we do the intake, we have to question what they're seeing, hearing, and try to find out which one it is. And that's how we decide whether we're going to go to this home or not. Because demon activity or evil activity, anything you want to call it, that kind of is more a self-help. And they have to stop what they're doing to keep this low energy from attaching to them. So it's a really fine line, but we have to find out what they're experiencing first, and then decide.
Yeah, there's blurry lines, because I'd spoken to a few people over the course of a year that have had quote unquote demon incidences. And then there's so again, to discern the difference between a demon, like a low vibrating non-human energy, versus an angry human or former human who's probably trapped in this void and doesn't quite understand what's going on, so they're agitated. From what I'd spoke, some of the stuff I've read anyway, and some of the things I've learned from doing the off podcast interviews, the actual demons themselves, from what I'm reading and understanding and listening to, they're more like a parasite. And parasites in biology and life, they like ticks and other parasites, they have this natural like anesthetic or just some way to make it so you're not aware that they're feeding on you, right? And that's when I think of demons, I think of parasites, because they're subtle and they come in, they don't want to detach. So they're doing things to kind of numb your awareness of them. Where these angry former humans, they seem to be the most boisterous, the loudest, probably more common what you guys deal with. Demons, on the other hand, it's an anomaly, because they spend the majority of times convincing you it's not that. It's anything. It's you. It's your depression. It's your life, your husband. They implant these thoughts in your mind to make you think anything but the vector itself. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, very much so. And that kind of goes when these little children spirits, these cute little kid spirits, and everybody wants to, I don't trust them. It's such an easy place to go. And there have been Oh my gosh, in the last 20 years, there have been so many cute little children spirits that people think they're interacting with. Fortunately for me, I'm a medium, and so I have that one more tool where it's like, and you know, it just takes some really good intuition. You don't really need mediumship. If you feel like something's off or something's not quite right, go with the gut.
Right.
But there have been many moments when people have the little child, oh my goodness, a case that we did with a Ouija board, which is a whole nother podcast one day, Ouija board.
Right.
But we did a case where these teenage girls were messing with the Ouija board, and a cute little kid came through and said cute little things for 20 minutes. And then it got dark really fast. And again, it's this really fast because lower level energies have zero patience. And so they will go down one path and mess with you. And then it's like game's over, party's over. And then it's very quickly dark. But they had a little kid, you know, and they were just so surprised because they had been the cute little kid. And we just did a house recently in California that they had a little girl, a mom and a 14-year-old daughter lived there, and they think there's a little girl spirit among other spirits at their home. And she said, oh, my daughter thinks the little girl was sad at Christmas time, so we put a gift out for her. And I'm thinking in my head, no, don't do that.
Yeah, it sounds like an invitation to stay.
It is. And that's a whole nother podcast. Stop inviting these spirits to interact, because people are interacting with death, deceased things. If it's your former living grandma, and let me even disconnect that emotional connection there. Somebody else's former living grandma. So it's not your grandma, it's somebody else's grandma has come back to this house and said, my husband built this house and I'm staying here. And suddenly you have a ghost in your house and you get a hold of Calpera. And then these people are talking about it inside their house, and they're doing recordings inside of their house, and they're leaving gifts inside of their house. And then they want it gone, but the behavior keeps the spirit energy there. And I guess it seems like common sense, but then I've been so deep into it for so long. It is an invitation. The more you interact with all these spirits, they don't understand when you want them to go, when you're leaving them a gift because maybe the little girl is sad at Christmas time. Also, that's putting earthly thought process onto a spirit who has moved onto, let's just say, the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension. We don't understand what is important to them there. And I have learned, they may have let go of many earthly things that used to be important to them and are no longer important to them. So sitting around at Christmas and seeing a tree and missing out on Christmas, I do not think as much as other people think that is truly happening. Yes, it can happen, but it's not the natural norm mindset I'm going to go to. If I have a spirit in my house, I'm not going to give it a Christmas gift, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
you know,
a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Again.
Yeah, a lot of times interacting with the spirit in your home will keep it there. So if you just ignore it and not entertain it, it's going to move on somewhere else. So that is one of the simplest solutions you can do, because the activity will amp up if you keep entertaining it. So just ignore it. It may be scary. You hear bumps, you know, maybe a light or door moving or light turning on, and just don't, react to it. It's hard to do, but don't react to it. It gets bored. It's going to move on somewhere else.
That's
It's
acknowledgement,
like
right?
a bully on a playground. If we tell your kids, if you just ignore the bully, he'll leave you alone. And I try and explain that to a lot of clients. There are many very simple ways to get the spirit activity to go down. Start with not interacting with it. And then, we can give you other things that are holistic to try. But
Yeah, acknowledgement's big in anything. I learned this in space. Atoms from across the universe, once acknowledged, can react differently just because they've been acknowledged. Now, that being said, I've done a lot of research on instruments of the paranormal, and I find like the Ouija board and tarot cards and some of these other things they use. These are instruments used because we hyper focus. We have an expectation that the Ouija board's going to summon something. A gentleman that I read about this, he had a normal deck of playing cards. And for whatever reason, he would utilize the blacks and reds for yes and no's. And then he started having paranormal activity. And it's not because the cards were haunted or he was. He put faith and he focused on it. And so I think if a group of people wanted to contact spirits, it wouldn't matter what instrument you use. Because like you guys said, there's some spirits out there. They're between worlds. They're not, whether they died instantly or whatever reason, they're still here, the in-between. When someone acknowledges them, to them it's like, wow, wait, you saw me, you heard me? And they want more and they feed on it and they stick around. Just like Cindy said, if you ignore it, it's going to move on because it's not getting what it needs from you. And then there's other cases where perhaps maybe the structure, the home, or an object in there they're attached to. For me, an example, my pool cue. If I pass on, I dearly love my pool cue. If I'm between, I'm going to follow it around, right? So essentially that object would be haunted because that's an object that's dear to me. So it's a tricky game. So how do you guys discern the difference between something that's been acknowledged or something that lives or currently resides where the haunting's going on?
And when you have a paranormal group come in the home, the first thing they're doing is acknowledging the spirit. Right. I mean, you're telling the client on the phone, don't acknowledge the spirit. And then we show up and begin to do everything that we've pretty much told the client not to do. But the theory that a lot of groups are running on without vocalizing it is if we can get in 3 hours and do a short-term survey and interaction, it's like we're dipping our toe into the water and testing it, and yep, you're right, we're getting voices and we're getting things are lighting up and moving, and we're getting communication in different forms from something that's cannot be written off. So now that we've done everything we've told you not to do, we're going to leave your home and tell you not to do what we just did. And we're going to send you a report with the evidence, the voices. We may or may not be able to make sense of what they said, why they said it, if it's clear and direct communication or indirect. For instance, you could ask a spirit, what is your name? You might get the answer, Fred. Okay, we know it's Fred, or at least he says he's Fred. Or you might ask a spirit their name and they say, I like the orange pillow, which makes no sense at all. However, you've got a voice on a recording that just doesn't belong. So it leans into something's happening in your home. Here are holistic ways to calm down the energy, to make it less inhabitable for the spirits. Do the following things. Maybe they will leave your home, move on to another home. So, it's just, it's kind of like, what song and dance does this spirit respond to? And then what song and dance will make this spirit leave? This holistic remedy is not working, but this one is. So it's not a definite science. We have a whole bag of tricks to try that have worked before and everything. Have I answered the question? Because I know I launched into something.
No, you did fine. You did fine. It's tricky all the way around because there's people that they feel that some of the remedies that we use currently just don't work.
Yes.
Mostly in part, and I've been finding this a lot. I know I said it before. I've pondered it, but now I'm coming across it. How many energies or entities that are around that predate humanity? They predate religion. They don't. Your religious jargon isn't going to work against it because it doesn't understand it. Some of the techniques we use today, it doesn't apply to them because in the era they lived in, Earth had more oxygen, so they're a larger entity, and these things didn't affect them in any way, shape, or form. I hear horror stories from this woman. She's Buddhist, and she's tried everything. Catholic priest, she's tried investigator, she's tried the sage, she's tried prayer. Nothing works. This thing, and it's not like it's abusive, but it lingers around her. It's a miserable existence, and it's making her miserable in turn. And then I thought to myself, well, you've acknowledged it. Try ignoring it. And she says she's tried. No, and it's definitely not attached to the place. It's going place to place with her, as she alleges. It's sad to hear these things, and this is not one time I'm hearing it. I heard this from several different sources that some of these energies quite possibly predate everything we know of.
Right. In language, and people talk about language, I have learned that it is very possible there's a universal language or at least a universal understanding. So that if you're, in a location where the deceased person spoke only Italian, how would he even understand us and stuff? And so in our experience, there have been moments when language does not seem to be a problem. They may respond in their native language. We have recordings of people in foreign languages and stuff. So there's this universal understanding in talking, but like you're talking about, some of the remedies and stuff that are actual, like sea salt and cedar sticks and things like that. Do they work better in America, and not so much in Japan? And then when you switch cultures, you can read up on in Asia, there's hungry ghosts, that go around, and beware of them and stuff. And so if you don't know about that here and you don't believe in that here, does it not exist here? Why would that be? If they exist, why are they why would they have a border? Right. I can't get out of the country of Indonesia because this is the only place that believes in my kind of haunting and stuff. That doesn't make sense. There should be no scientific border from what we've discovered. They can go anywhere they want. And yet we here don't run into the cultural different kind of spirits. We run into the ones that fit into our creed and belief system. And that's kind of like, woo, mind-blowing,
right. So I ask, because I hear it a lot. I hear about the salt. I hear about people surrounding themselves with salt. I hear about the sage and the different, what gives those their strength, I guess I should say. Like what gives salt and sage the strength to remove? Because I say this because I've done some studies on, some of the priests that they conduct exorcisms. Rabbis do something near it. Shamans have a different method. And one thing I see that are common in all of them is that the figurehead that's performing this is assertive. He stands firm in what he believes. So the words really don't have the strength so much as that his energy is assertive. You must go, regardless of the lingo. Setting all that aside, it's something about that energy that they put out there that makes this entity want to leave. But it also makes me curious about the salt and the sage. I never understood really what the properties are and what gives it its strength.
Specifically, salt and sage, I can give an answer to. Cindy, I was just thinking about something. Cindy has tribal blood. And so, Cindy, in your family history and stuff, are there certain beliefs or paths that they take to encourage or push away interactions with spiritual ancestors or anything like that?
Well, you mentioned sage. Sage is a Native American ritual done by medicine man, and sage is for energy, negative energy that you feel within yourself. So sage, when they sage something for a person, that smoke, you bring it towards you, and then it goes up towards your head and out of you. With that, those negative energies go out. Using sage to cleanse a home is just clearing the negative energy out. It's not for ghosts. It's not for demons. And that is a Native American ritual that has become Americanized, that a lot of people think that it's okay to use. So it does actually the opposite for spirits in a home. It actually amps them up and makes it worse. And a lot of people don't know that because of TV. So in the Native American culture, that's not what we use it for. That's what I know about sage.
Yeah, and salt is from the Pilgrims. Puritan religion believed if they put salt across the door, they would keep the devil out. So they put it across the door, they put it across windowsills. I don't think at that time in the year 1620 that they had an understanding of science. They knew that salt would be good for brining meat and other functional purposes, but they got it in their head that it was a solid structure and it would repel. Maybe there's a passage in the Bible about salt, but it would repel the devil. And so people put salt across their windowsills. Fast forward, 500 years later, people don't know why they're doing it, but they're doing it. And Google, unfortunately, anyone can create a website. So someone will create their website and copy paste false or old information. And so you get 100 websites out there saying, use sage, use salt, and they're just repeating each other. And yet no one knows the properties of how that got started or why that's a good idea or not a good idea. I'm not good at science. I do know that salt has some measurable properties and stuff. And my thought process is that somewhere in the Bible it has the word salt, so-and-so turned into a pillar of salt. That one I know.
Right.
Lot's wife. But there's other stories, I'm sure, because salt was almost a commodity of monetary value. You could exchange salt for whatever and use it as money thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it's, you ever see the movie It?
With the clown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know how like at the end the kids they take their stand and one has it's an inhaler but it's battery acid, and he put such belief in it that it worked. And it makes me wonder how much, because again, you got to consider what, or at least I consider what spirits are, right? Their energy. It's raw energy. It's separated from their vessel, their body. And so to combat energy, you'd have to use a different form of energy. And if you're using, an energy that presents strength and it's an alpha, you got to go, or, you put a lot of belief behind it, perhaps maybe that's what works. Because when you put a lot of belief in salt and some of these other things, perhaps maybe that energy you're putting forth is now discouraging the energy of the thing that's troubling you. I mean,
that's got to play into it, because so many other moments we have this belief system that we tell ourselves, if we believe strongly enough that, I will get the strength to get up out of bed even though I'm not feeling so well, and I will make it to work today, and blah, 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 blah. So we do use our belief system as momentum in other moments. And so metaphysically, when you can't see something, people have a trouble believing in it, et cetera, et cetera. And yet we use our belief system each and every day for little spur of the moments that we don't realize we're doing that. So you are right. If you start believing that jelly beans are going to be helpful and you line jelly beans in a circle on your coffee table and you believe in that strongly enough, not that the jelly beans did work, but your own personal energy.
Right.
I believe you amp it up and you become a force to deal with, like you're talking about the attitude and stuff.
Right. You're repelling negative energy with a more positive, assertive energy.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what I see the common ground in some of the research I've done with where these priests or rabbis and other religious figureheads are successful in removing these entities is they all exhibit the same kind of profound energy that speaks, I'm alpha and you're going to listen to what I say. My energy is above yours. I see that it's a very common thing where there was I read an article, I want to say it was like the 1940s, where it was in Brazil and they were performing an exorcism and the priest was very visibly unsure of what he was doing and it didn't work because that energy recognized this is a weak opponent. I have a one-up on him.
Right. I was just thinking, I think there's some alchemy to this too, because when you've got your cedar sticks or your sweetgrass, and these are all plants, and there are many cultures that have used plants for healing properties long before we scientifically discovered aloe can help the burn or whatever. So you've got these plants or these essential oils or sea salt,
right?
Which everybody loves the ocean salt. It's got healing properties. So the minute you associate something with healing properties and you maybe prove it has healing properties, you've got this alchemy going on. People say, why? Why is cedar good? I don't know why. I'm not good in science. I just know that there's some sort of chemical interaction when you're burning cedar that's creating, it's not the smell, it is in the smoke. It's creating an environment that it's either the placebo effect or it's real. Either it really is making a spirit calm down and not want to be there because they're feeling so lethargic, or your head is going to a place that's creating an environment.
Yeah.
What if all of these things that everyone uses as a remedy, what if we found out that it was actually placing our own personal energy in a better state of control of the situation?
Right. And to let you know, you don't have to know much about science, but what you're speaking about is basically science. Because if you use cedar in 100 cases and it's successful in 80 of them, that percentage speaks to it being a successful instrument to use. Right. So that in itself is science. It's been out there in case study and we know it's working about 80 out of 100. That's a good percentage. We'll continue to use it. And for the small percentage it's not working for, we'll have to find something that will remedy that one. But it really comes down to percentages.
Right. And then I approach the client with the behavior of, you're going to love this remedy. It's so good. 99% of our previous clients before you have claimed that it worked for them. So I'm essentially hyping up my client with what I believe is true. And now they have a choice to say, well, I need help. I'm frightened. She's telling me this is going to work. By golly, I need to believe in something. So now I believe in it.
Yeah, it's positive affirmation, and it's
exactly
it's good in mental health, and as it seems, it's good in the paranormal. I mean, but you have to, because if you go to someone's house and say, hey, this works, but if you don't believe in it, it's not gonna. Some of these people have such self-doubt that it may not work because they don't give it the time. But if they're convinced it's going to work, then yeah, the energy of their body's going to shift towards a more positive percentage.
Right. And like I said, when we began the show, lately we've been getting a slew of clients that are frightened ready to sell their home, ready to sleep in a hotel. This is costing them money. And we're trying our best to take it down a notch. And even if we're approaching them with these wonderful remedies that have helped people before you, they're almost like, no, I don't want to do anything. I just want to tell somebody that I'm frightened, but I don't want to make them mad. I asked somebody, which remedies have you been trying? And she said, well, none of them. Okay, well,
I got to tell you this, Katie. I got notes here I'm pulling out. This is from, here, let me find it. It was about like maybe a month or two ago. Here it is. Oh, no, that's not it. Here it is. So this gentleman had an entity or something was troubling him in his house. And he noticed that there was something, in his kitchen happening. And so it's whenever he would have breakfast, it would arrange things in the kitchen a certain way, right? And he's telling me, he goes, this went on for a while now. So I asked him on the phone, I'm like, well, how'd you get rid of it? He goes, I broke all the dishes. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I broke all the dishes. Now there's nothing for it to move around. And literally gone. I was like, what a weird way to deal with that. Like, evidently he realized it was like organize things in a very left or right mannerism and he got upset because he is a on-the-go person. I think he said he's a student for law. So he gets up, he's on the go. He doesn't have time to go look for his favorite bowl. Everything's ready. Well, whatever this was reorganizing. And this is what I mean about that positive energy, that firm stance. He just broke all his dishes. And then he said out loud, well, now there's nothing to move.
In my mind, it would find something new if there was a spirit there, it would find something new to rearrange.
But I think he conveyed a message of, I have better shit to do, and this isn't going to work for me. I think that literally, it's not even about the broken dishes. When he said that, the first thing that popped in my head is he conveyed a message. You're not going to trouble me. I have too much going on. And he was very firm about it. And that leads me back to those same figureheads that take that firm position, and some of these other things that the utensils and tools and some of the recipes we use to combat these things. It's just us putting strength behind what we believe in.
And yet we tell people not to be confrontational. In other words, there's a couple of TV shows where the lead guy is a yelling, screaming, dare I say, idiot.
Yeah.
But he has forgotten that new people will be recommended to watch his show as well as others, and he's not being responsible. But anyway, so this yelling, screaming, we get people emailing us all the time saying, I got tired of it, and I finally, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I stood in my house and was screaming at the invisible, you get out of here, cussing it out. And I think you should not be yelling at something that's invisible, because that can escalate things. Your personal energy is going up sky high.
Not to mention, if you come across an entity that it's an antagonist, or its previous while alive was very violent, you're feeding it what it needs.
Right, and that's what Cindy was talking about, is sage with personal living energy. If you walk in a home and some living people were arguing there, and they've moved out and you've moved in, and you feel this bad vibe, it feels yuck here. Sure, you can sage away some of that negative living energy, but that's what I'm referring to. If your self gets sky high with anxiety and fear and anger, those carry a lot of power in those energy levels. Even sadness, and even you can be ecstatically happy, that has a lot of energy power. But if you're going to stand up and you're just going to scream, you're taking your personal energy up. It's like you might as well spoon feed them, because number one, it's not a good idea to yell at something that's invisible to you, because you just don't know what level they're at. Are they former living cranky or never living? And number two, you're actually like handing them batteries, because your personal energy is going up and stuff.
You know what I'm starting to see? I'm starting to figure out, and I notice because part of the reason I do the podcast and some of the things I want to learn, because on the podcast I talk about everything, even with law enforcement. I mean, just it's an anything subject podcast, but I hyper focus on ufology and paranormal. That's because I'm questioning my own mortality at the end of the day. And so how many of these people that are calling upon you and other researchers are questioning or just curiosity? They're questioning their mortality. Now, Cindy, the Native Americans, the indigenous Americans, they're very in tune with their mortality, post and current, yeah?
Yeah, with their ancestry.
Right.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so how many cases are you seeing coming from, Native Americans? Probably not a lot, because they're
No.
I would imagine they're pretty firm on what they believe.
That's right. And within their culture and their surrounding family, they handle these things on their own very privately. So yeah, we don't get a lot of Native American clients because they know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, for them, there's no question about who they are, what they are, where they're going. Where other people in regular society, I mean, let's be honest. I have friends that are Native American. I do realize one thing: they are not influenced by our religion or any other religion for that matter. They're not. You can't sway them, right? Where we have people, I notice because I'm related to some, but they're Christian, and then there's other people that I'm related to that are Jewish, and I hear all these different religions, and they all have kind of the same tones, right? The same ideology, figuratively speaking. But every one of them, it's constantly a question of mortality. Like I had a relative, like I swear to you, they live by anticipating the end of time, the end of days or whatever, the second coming. I'm like, why would you live every day looking forward to that? And so then there's a lot of people out there that are, I'll call them non-religious, and they question their mortality more so than others because that's that unknowing. And so I think with some people, like what Katie was saying, like there's some people that they need the proof of the ghost. They need to know it's there. Or, they know it's there, but they want your proof of it. At some level, they're not sure. And by you confirming something's there gives them some sort of inner peace that there's something after this. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, because we don't know, we don't know what happens to us after we die. We don't know what the afterlife is like. But when things are coming back and trying to communicate with the living, that questions everything. How is that possible?
Right.
How is it possible when you leave your physical body and your consciousness stays with you to where you can interact with the living? We don't know religion wise and, the non-religion people. That's what we're questioning. And, it's weird.
It's scary too, because a big part for me, I don't know anything, right? I just, everything you hear me on this podcast speak of is a theory formed from my imagination, mixed with everything I've learned and listened to. I form opinions. And so I'm under the impression, personally, that our soul and our consciousness are the same thing. It's just raw energy. Because when you look at the human body and the nervous system and the brain, it's a computer, it looks mechanical, and so when you take that into consideration, that the energy that drives this machine, there's movies like Avatar that make sense to me. Like you're just taking your energy and putting it in another body and controlling that body and then leaving it when it's either decayed and old or maybe you separate from it for whatever reason. And some of these energies that you guys are coming across are like, I said it before, they die fast, they're shot dead instantly, or car accident, and they're kind of in this void of like, what happened to me? What am I doing here? And or maybe there's another kind of energy like myself. We're nostalgic. We really like it here. We're very attached to who we are. And when relatives come to greet you at that moment, you're like, nope, not going. I want to be here, So it drives my curiosity what some of these in-between energies are that we're communicating or that's being communicated with.
And you're talking about being scared. I think that kind of plays into when the clients call us and everything, because we would like the fairy tale happy ending where we gently pass away in our sleep and then we go on to some greater thing that's either been promised to us or we believe in or we hope for or whatever. So what the heck is going on when you have these like lost, they break the mold, they break the pattern, they break what we hope for. I can't be comfortable anymore because I've got somebody's grandpa back in my house. You know, why didn't he just move along like I've been told all my life? And what can I do personally to avoid this? We don't want to pass away and be a lost spirit. My joke is I'm always going to go to Disneyland. First thing I'm going to do when I pass away is go to Disneyland. And, like the pool cue, what place or object am I attached to and stuff. But then after that, what am I going to do? Well, I was brought up to believe that there's this great beyond, and I hope I get there and everybody's happy and it's all wonderful and stuff. So all of this exploration, why I'm in it, is to help understand what's the break. Why is there the norm? And then these certain individuals did not do that, I'm sure your grandfather was a wonderful person. Why did he not do that? Why is he lurking around this house and telling me this is his chair, don't sit in it after he passes away? And yet my grandfather's not doing that. How come your grandfather's doing that, and
yeah, I mean, your soul / your consciousness, everyone has their own personality and purpose, and a lot of it's perception. So I'd spoken to a number of people where they say they saw an entity walk right through a wall or whatever. I think to myself, I'm like, well, it's how you perceive it, right? Because for us, it's your home. You decored it the way you wanted. And maybe this entity, this energy that's there, doesn't perceive the house as it's sitting currently. It still only sees what it was. And so where the wall is, once upon a time was a door. And it's passing through it. We don't understand that because we're only seeing the energy part of it. So a lot of it has to do with perception, I think.
Right. Yeah. And, so many things that they tell you, like if your house is haunted, do you feel like you're being watched? Well, we can feel like we're being watched, and it doesn't mean there's a spirit there, is the hair standing up on your arm or your neck or whatever, well, that can happen. It doesn't mean there's a spirit there. Is there a cold breeze? That can happen. It doesn't mean there's a spirit there and stuff. Or are the dogs barking at the wall,
Right.
And so you have all this mixture. It's kind of like it makes it so it's a one size fits all. I can write up look for these following things and your house might be haunted. Although if each and every one of these happens, your house may not be haunted, and and then we're supposed to go in there and kind of make heads or tails of, we'll do our best to see if your house is haunted,
Yeah, you got to factor in too. We still have our primitive mindset, right? It's still instinct to when we hear something in the background, a hair standing up. These are chemical responses to our predator. We're afraid of the predator of the dark. There's still that little bit of a primitive mind to us. We all have it. So some of that could factor in. I think we're trying to, as humans right now, we are trying to bridge the gap between living longer and immortality. Right? There's institutes that are working on. They're scanning the human brain with the goal of uploading and downloading the consciousness. There's wealthy people that want their head severed because they come to the realization your entire existence is in the computer of your brain. If you could preserve that till future science, maybe you can come back, be younger, et cetera, et cetera. Everything boils down to the mortality. Very few people, they look at death and they're like, well, I don't care. I don't know a lot of people like that. Everyone cares. Just some people come to terms with it when it comes to that time. But some of these energies that you're coming across, like the grandfather or the man that's in the home, and what are you doing in my chair? He didn't want to leave. So he fought hard to not leave. You know what I mean? So it becomes, I don't know. There's a blurred line there of, who passed on and who's alleging to stay behind. And that's where it's going to become questionable. And the Native American, Cindy, in with Native American culture, I don't know a lot about it, but I do have some understanding. They think their loved ones not so much go to a dimension, but there's like another phase of life. Does that mean, is that right or no?
Yeah, Native Americans, we always talk to our ancestors for guidance and decisions. They're always around to help us with that. And so, yeah, there are things that we use our ancestors for to help us out. But they're there not to come back to haunt us.
Right. Because you don't very often hear about, hauntings, that Native Americans being haunted. And most of them I see on TV that are investigating, I've never seen a fearful one.
Yeah.
They just have a grander understanding. But there's this, I can't even remember the name of the show, but Katie was saying, this guy was just taking his shirt off. And he's like, oh, you're going to leave or you're going to fight me. Like, I hear these things. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what, are you out of your mind? Hypothetically speaking, if it did form in front of you and you took a punch, what do you think the effects of that are going to be? It's a non-physical entity. It makes no sense.
I had something form in front of me once, and that was a do I really want to be in this business moment? And, it's kind of funny. It's easy to go into a home when you're not seeing and hearing things. You have machines. We're so used to our machines lighting up, beeping, talking, rolling. Those are exciting moments. Is this intelligent communication? Hearing things on the headphones. We're immune to that stuff. But there's a haunted cemetery near us that I was in one evening, and there's just all kinds of stories of things that have been seen there. And I was with a person, and we were walking out of it back to my car, and a foggy mist was gathering about 10 feet south of me. And I thought, that's unusual. It's like a cloud on the ground. It's like a fog, kind of compact to itself, swirly, and near the ground. And yet it's a clear night. There's, stars out there. There's no clouds. It's kind of weird. And we're kind of talking, and I'm looking at it, and it gathered together in intensity, and this cloud formation grew from the ground and stretched itself taller, until it became about 10, 15 feet tall. And it also, the fog extended out on the sides like two arms were forming. And it became sort of a tall 15-foot blob of fog with two arms. And in my mind, it's kind of like a cross between, holy cow, wait till I tell everyone this, to, oh my God, this is too much. This, it's like my life was handed to me in my hands. I didn't know if I was going to die. I felt like I was suddenly in one of those movies. And the weird thing is everything that you've ever experienced in life didn't tell you this could ever happen. There's nothing on the planet Earth that tells me at any given moment a fog can rise up from the ground and form into a 15-foot blob person shape. And I don't know what to do with that. And I don't know if I'm really seeing it, and I don't want to stick around. So we took off as quickly as we could. Other people might have said, oh, you missed an opportunity to investigate. But all I felt at that moment was danger. And it made no sense.
Your instincts prevailed. I'm a weird person. I probably would have hopped out, photographed it, tried to take samples. I have friends of mine are like, you should not be in the field investigating, because I'm one of these people. I'm going to run at it. I don't care what it is. I don't care. I'll worry about the results afterward, but I got to know, it's been like that my whole life. So, because there's no shot that I'm going to be out when I do a documentary eventually, and I'm in some field and someone sees Bigfoot in the distance. You better believe I'm running at it, right? There better be like medical professionals on hand, because I'm going. I have to, because I won't sleep that night if I don't. I'm like, what did I see? Did I really see that? I want to, like, even for me, like the few times in my life where I thought I heard something weird in the house, I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's have a talk. There's no reason to hide. I'll sit down. I'll relax. I will speak. Nothing. So I've never witnessed anything in my whole life. I think I don't know, maybe it's my aggressive behavior. I'm not sure. If you listen to the episode of I did with Kathleen Martin, it's the more recent episode I did with her. I was researching the abductions phenomena so deeply that I actually had a dream with it. And even in the dream, Cindy, I was aggressive. I was asking the thing, like, what are you going to do for me? Like, rather than being afraid of this thing, I'm actually negotiating with it in a very firm manner. Like, what are you going to do for me? I mean, you're here, you're an alien, you got me. And then I wake up from the dream and I immediately made myself repeat it over and over again so I wouldn't forget the details of it. I'm a weird person like that. I don't know why I'm like that.
In that cemetery I was talking about, I've heard so many stories. I had another person that used to be in our group years ago tell me a similar story before that happened to me. And probably 3 to 6 months before. So it had faded from my memory, and I am not the kind of person that's going to recreate something I've heard. I'm more like, you got to prove it to me, So when he told me this story, I'm thinking, well, he is kind of new, and there was probably the wind, and I'm trying I didn't say it to his face, and he drew a picture, and I'm rationalizing. I don't know about this 15-foot tall cloud with arms, I don't know about this, it's probably this and that. And I forgot about it. But he's the first person I went and found after that night and said, oh my gosh, Corey, I am so sorry. I didn't believe you. And he had 2 other people with him that all swore the same thing. And I'm thinking, well, one of them, their reputation is kind of a storyteller anyway. And so maybe he influenced them somehow. He's like, look. And they all said, oh, yeah. But when it happened to me, I was with someone kind of very new in the field. I was kind of giving them an intro lesson that night. Not what we expected. We were looking for your normal ghost. And so they were saying, what's wrong? And I'm like, my mouth is open and I'm just pointing. And they're seeing it and they're kind of like, oh, is that unusual? They were so naive about the whole thing. They were seeing it. And yes, they confirmed later on. And of course, our equipment we were holding was going nuts, off the charts, like electromagnetic fields, craziness and stuff. But, for all the stories I've heard of this place, I've seen so many out of the corner of my eye, shadow people, and heard and witnessed different other normal hauntings. So, it's just like when you talk about Bigfoot or aliens or anything that someone wants to explore, you have what you've heard and the regular routine of these things. And then when something gathers into a 15-foot foggy cloud, it's like, what is that? It's not a spirit the way we know it. I don't think it's a demon, what the heck? What category does that fall into?
Well, you got to realize, again, back to what we said earlier in the show, not everything here, it was in our timeline.
Exactly.
So if my daughter and I speak about this a lot. My daughter loves dinosaurs, and why were dinosaurs so big? It's because in that era there was more oxygen, so plants were bigger, insects were bigger, everything alive was bigger, and we don't know is what the state of the planet was before then. Because you're talking dinosaurs are 100 million years ago, 200 million years ago. This planet's 4 billion years old, give or take. We have no clue what lived here before. Could have been a very sophisticated beings of people. It could have been other creatures, but regardless of what it was, whatever energy is left behind from them, like for us, it's unknown. So we don't know. And so could have been presented with who knows what.
Cindy and I went to a paranormal conference in Arizona, and there is a Native American tribe group that are paranormal researchers. And what was good about interacting with them was, like Cindy said, just learning their approach and their culture and the differences that we don't even begin to take into consideration. But it was at a haunted location. It's an old mining town that's been the town part, the post office and the way station and the gas station, in the homes, they're all closed down, but they're still intact. The kitchen, but up the hill, the mine still is active, and so people drive there and go to work and go home. Down below the mine is the village that is a ghost town now. So the paranormal conference was there, and we met the tribe, and they told us there are giants. Cindy, do you remember if the giants are like helpful or fearful?
No.
Or what?
No, their ancestor giants that the Native Americans know of. And when they started mining or reopened that mine, those spirits came out of the mine and now can wreak havoc on Earth. So that Native American paranormal group kind of keeps those spirits there from moving somewhere else. So that's what they do, because they can see this spirit, or their ancestors have told them about these spirits, but they're huge. They're like giants.
Yeah, they call them the giants.
Yeah. So that was really interesting to know about that, and that's why they came there.
So they're invisible to us. They're
Right.
giant human looking. Aren't they human looking?
Yeah, they're human looking.
Right. And they're upset because
The Earth was disturbed.
white man is messing with the earth in this particular area, and they're upset. So the mining released them from the caves, and the tribe has made it their responsibility to keep them contained and pleased, whatever that.
When you think about it, if we were to just go back 1.5 billion years and something existed here, and it's come and gone, it would be pretty deep to even find the fossil record. You'd have to go down way further than we had to go down for dinosaurs. And by that, and the compression of the planet and how much the planet's grown and more growth on top of it, it probably would compress their bones and other physical features to nothing, right? So then it would make sense that their energy would be contained, sub-level, real low. It is, however, it's baffling that a mine would release their energy. And then it makes me think about what you saw, fog, in a location you're at. When you have something that's 15 foot tall, it's considerably. Everything that lives on Earth is raw energy. Every single thing here is a vessel that has energy inside of it. So when you figure something's energy is massive, maybe the fog, maybe it's the condensation surrounding the energy is what you saw, right? I mean, I think often about, I revert to science a lot, right? I see what they do with fog machines, and so they could see lasers and see how things interact. And it makes me wonder what energy would be like in that same field. So it's not impossible to see a figure of that size It is scary, however, that, we forget the idea of it just being an old entity in itself. Mankind digs deep into the earth for resources or whatever reason we do carelessly. What if we hit a pocket of methane that releases in that area, kills a bunch of people, or some other gas or poison? Or there's even been cases where we found an old virus, an ancient virus somewhere. I don't remember how, or I'll have to read about it again. But imagine the catastrophe that follows finding an old virus, let alone anything else you come across. It's a little irresponsible on our behalf.
Yeah, when everybody gets into ghost hunting, they think of it in human-sized terms. Former living human, now human-sized spirit, and then there's the shadow side. Possible lower level energy, possible demon, possible never living. So you've got those two. Okay. And then that's where everybody usually stops. So, I'm going to go ghost hunting, and I'm going to have people that used to be living or never were living, and I'm going to run around and scream like a banshee and get all excited, and this is fun. Then you start going and hearing other stories from other cultures and other tribes, like I was talking about the Asian culture, these hungry ghosts that go out and eat living people, their belief system. And, it may sound so silly to us, but if you're immersed in it and grow up with it, you don't go into that forest at night because that's where the hungry ghost is. And then you hear the Native American cultures, these giants, where these giants come from, and who were they before they were giants? And were they always energy, spiritual beings, and how come that culture interacts at that place, and our culture said, oh, I don't have time for that. That doesn't fit into my box and stuff. And so people go into the field, keep your eyes and ears open. You're going to find out that field is not a one size fits all, and not what you thought it was. There's a lot more involved in it.
Yeah, we've recently discovered a skeletal structure, I think it was in 2017, of a larger human species. And there's speculation that they're going to find more. I never did hear more about that, actually. I'm going to look back into that. But I remember thinking that was odd. And I had to consider, what was mankind like, 30,000 years ago? How much oxygen was in the planet? Or, we don't factor any of that. We, like you said, we always think us. We're a very self-centered species of humankind.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
It's crazy. Well, ladies, before we close out, is there anything you want to add?
Well, we're excited because the Queen Mary in California is finally reopening after COVID shut down probably almost 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. And so opening up this spring, and we're really good friends with the ghost tour host. So we've been talking with him about we have to go, So one of the first things I want to do is find out spiritual awareness of changes. Like, can we get some recordings where they say, where have you been? Was everyone sick? An awareness of COVID in current time, or do they just go back to the ship is nice and I was a passenger and I really like it here?
Are you guys going to document that? Like you got film document the entire experience?
As best we can, yeah.
Perfect. So as soon as you're done with that, I'm going to have you right back on, because that's one of the places I want to go to.
We are only an hour away, so we have been fortunate enough, if you live in Louisville, Kentucky, you're going to go to Waverly all the time, and Eastern Penitentiary and these Stanley Hotel, these places around the United States that people hear about. But you have to go there often and compare your research. You have to be within an hour or two of West Virginia or Pennsylvania or wherever they're located. Our good fortune is the Queen Mary is an hour away from us. So we've been there way too many times, and to the point where some of the same spirits show up. Their voice is measurable, their dialect and their wording and everything. And it's kind of like they are intelligent and recognize us. And yet other spirits are less intelligent and just seem to sort of be like in la la land. They're kind of like, ooh, you know.
It might be their loop, right? Like some like that's, they're going to the Queen Mary, and whatever era they were going to it, they live that day every day.
Exactly. It's like me saying I'm going
like
to
a residual hunt.
Right. Yeah. So that's there a lot of, listen, unfortunately, a lot of human beings that gets kind of trapped in that in-between existence. That's a lot of them. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go to work. They're going to go to the beach. They're going to go to Disney World. They're going to repeat what they've done. Or, you know, I don't know. For me, I don't know. I feel bad for my relatives. I better go somewhere else.
Cindy's been doing a lot of in-house seminars, going to like schools, and a company had a company lunch recently, and they asked for a paranormal group to come and talk at their company luncheon.
Wow.
So
it was a Halloween.
Oh, okay. Party. Yeah. So there was a little bit of an angle to it. Yeah. So, and funny enough, it's at a location that we know is haunted, but publicly they announce we're not haunted, but they know they are, and we know they are, but nobody breathe about it, you know?
Yeah. It's bad for business, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Or it could be good for it if they got smart. Eventually, they could be like, well, we could turn to one of these major networks, and they'll stick cameras here for whatever money. You know, I mean, it's not impossible.
Well, certain hotels will put it on their website and kind of ride the wave for a while. But even Stanley Hotels said they don't want to go over in Colorado. They don't want to go that direction anymore. They just want to be an expensive hotel.
Right.
It's always whoever gets into management. When you get into management, if you personally don't feel comfortable with that, we have found they'll find a way to shut it down. And if you don't give a heck, whatever, then we have found that they're like, yeah, sure. Yeah, come on in. I don't care. I don't believe in it. But if you do, that's fine.
Well, Cindy, Katie, before we close, mention your website where people could find you again. I'm going to put it in the description so they can find it, but it's always good to mention it.
Okay, Cindy is the organizer of the group. I am the founder of the group, but it got way too big and too busy for me to handle alone, and so I handed the reins to Cindy to be an organizer. So our website is www.calpara.org. CAL like California, PARA like paranormal, Calpara. And then Cindy, what's your email?
My email is calpara.cindy.yahoo.com. At yahoo.com.
At Yahoo, yeah.
Excellent.
So, yeah, they can contact her there. And
it's also on the website, my email address.
Well, good. I look forward to your findings from the Queen Mary. And in the meantime, I'm going to say good night, good evening or good day, whatever it is for whoever's listening. I'm going to talk to Cindy and Katie in post.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.